Good morning, audience. Welcome to this week's episode of Coffee with Jim and James. James, I am, when we get on and our purpose and our passions align and good things come about of this, and I'll just give the audience a little background. One of our passions is going to conferences, meeting people, and building friendships and relationships. And our guest today, we just got to the honor of meeting her not too long ago, but, already on the LinkedIn board, we have a lot of back and forth communications, and it's just wonderful to see people in person and then to follow up, with any type of medium, especially electronic medium that we're blessed to have right now. We're also very blessed to be talking about another one of our passions of mental health, mental awareness, all those buzzwords. And we really have seen so much of it in our industry and work and friends and everything. So it's wonderful to be bringing our guest in today to talk about that. But before we do, James, how are you doing today?
I'm well. Right? I'm well. Sporting a new hat, a new old hat. I brought back one of the first ones from this year, just to finish off the year. It's very important stuff. Very important stuff. Okay. I am excited today because we are amongst award winners today. SGA award winners. I wish I had it and could hold it up, but we all laugh about it. I know we're all humbled by the SGA and even being nominated, but to be winners, we are amongst winners today. And one of those winners is our guest, April Keatley. Good morning, April. How are you?
Hey, good morning. I'm doing well. Happy to be here and excited to talk to you guys.
We're excited.
I know April won, and I'll tell you what, I'll let you do the justice because I always feel like I screw that part up. But April, if you don't mind, let everybody know who you're with and what you do. And also, if you don't mind telling a little bit of the number one, the award you won, but secondly, why and kind of what transpired in that story, if you don't mind.
Oh, wow. That's a lot to unpack.
We only have, the next hour and a half. All
right. Okay. So my name is April Keatley. I am manager of business intelligence and standards. My team is responsible for database type work that triggers out our work orders, that drive our work management and drive protecting our assets across the footprint, right? Wow. I'm specifically in the natural gas business unit. And recently, I had the privilege and honor to one, be nominated, and then to win the SGA award for my work on mental health, destigmatizing mental health, and just getting it out there, right? And just being vulnerable and transparent about some of my experience with that. And I was really excited, really, unexpected. And I was even unexpected, just to be nominated. Wow.
Yeah. We were honored. We were like, can you believe we're nominated? Just that alone was a big deal.
Yeah. And then when I'm sure you were just like us, we were sitting in the auditorium there at the NASCAR Hall of Fame, and Jimmy just goes on and on and on. The story, you could tell he did his background work and told the story better than I think I could have. And then you're like, wait a minute, that's my story. And it was so neat to be there. And I don't know about you, but we've had so much engagement post that event, just people reaching out, wanting to know, more and stuff. And for someone who won an award for something so important right now, April, I'm sure you're happy and for people to be reaching out and wanting to, how do we do this within our own company?
Yeah, I did actually. So Jimmy's company, the HR team, Southern Gas, they reached out, and I did have some dialogue.
Ashley over there, yeah.
Ashley,
we just had Ashley on last week.
Yeah. So we did talk a bit about that, and I certainly can't take credit, for for the kind of the whole program that our health services team is rolling out. Like, you know, I'm just one piece of that, right? So I do want to make sure that the health services team
Shout out to them for sure.
Are doing great work, and that's been featured recently in the company's sustainability kind of program or rollout that they just did recently. So really cool stuff. But so maybe just a little about how I kind of got nominated and a little about my story, if that works for you guys.
Please.
Tell us all about it.
Absolutely.
All right. And feel free if you have questions too.
Oh, you know us.
This isn't our first time. You'll be tired of us here in the next 20 minutes.
So it was, I think it was fall of, well, and let me back up, maybe just give a little bit of a background about my story too. So, you know, the companies went through, I worked for Columbia Gas originally, and obviously we merged with TC Energy, or they acquired us, however you want to say it. And then became TransCanada and TC Energy, you know, the right. New company. So during that period of time, I had moved into leadership. I had been a leader for a year, and I had kind of a smaller team of, 3-4 people. Moved into a different role where I had 9 people. So that was certainly a step up, and a change, right? And then just the kind of the amount of, and I will say that I am sure that I am not the only person. I'm not, nothing special, nothing unique about me. But just the amount of, pressure and stress. You want to perform, you want to do well, you want to meet expectations, right? And, at the time, I did not feel like I could really speak up and say, hey, this is too much. And to be honest, it never really occurred to me to do it because of just how I was raised. My mom was always very much, you soldier on, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And I started noticing some headaches, didn't think much of it, work stuff, right? And then it continued to progress, and that stress was still there, but I never correlated them together. I started having some hearing loss in this ear, which I still have a little bit today. I started having some facial paralysis, which, jacked up kind of like my eye moving correctly and my smile and things like that. And finally, it kind of came to a head in May 2018. My team and had a team meeting, great meeting. But anytime you have a meeting like that where you get people together, it's emotionally fatiguing, right? And physically tiring. So I went home and noticed that was feeling a little emotional, right? Just coming off the meeting and tired. Just really noticed that my eye wasn't blinking correctly, and I wasn't able to smile. And I thought, okay, this has gone on long enough. I'd gone back and forth with doctors, and so I went to the ER just to make sure I wasn't having a stroke. Didn't think I was, wasn't sure. So I ended up going to the hospital, and they found out that I was in the hospital here in Charleston for 5 days, then up at Johns Hopkins for 10. And they found out that I had, it's called IgG4 Pocky meningitis. So it's a non-infectious meningitis, and it's an autoimmune condition, very treatable. And not a lot of people have it, 2,000 people. So it's kind of crazy. And, that was the first time when I got that diagnosis of autoimmune condition, right? They said those words that I was like, maybe that's associated with stress. You know what I mean? And because I think that stress is one of the worst things. It can wreak havoc on your body, right? It can. And if you have a back injury and you're under stress, your back is going to be bothering you, right? And so really just struggling with that stress, which is a form of mental health illness, right? And not being able to manage it, and not feeling like at the time that I could ask for help. So, or anything like that. Right?
You okay over there, Jim?
It
story, it looked like that story hit you.
It did hit me.
Literally.
I hit my setup. It was an IT issue. I
It's his
apologize.
first time, April. I apologize. He's not very good at podcasts. But
No problem. So, I heard that, like I said, that autoimmune diagnosis and was like, well, wait a second. And I got to say, I got to take some accountability on myself, right? Because I didn't, when I joined the company, like I was excited, new career, new job, like getting into leadership, things that I had
yeah,
been very interested in, as a professional. And I didn't really set those boundaries. And I think that that is key critical, right? What time do you end the workday, right? What do you do to manage that stress, right? Exercise, meditation, yoga, golfing, fishing, whatever it is that brings you joy and kind of
podcasting,
podcasting, talking to friends. Yeah. All those, healthy habits, right? And I had kind of forsaken some of that. So, I started reintroducing some of those boundaries, right? Kind of coming off the health kind of crisis and issue. And, my health did stabilize. So happy about that. Got some hearing back in this year, still got a little bit, but so then it was then we kind of COVID hit, right? And my leadership knew that I was always very like interested in positive things, like posting positive things, sharing positive information, sharing kind of different types of safety moments, because we do start every every meeting with a safety moment within the company. I'm sure that's common practice.
Yes.
Safety share, right?
Yep.
And so as part of, I think it was in fall of 2020, the health services organization had reached out to the VPs and some of the directors and said, hey, we're looking for directors and managers to be mental health advocates. And I was like, so first my director, I actually saw the email. She was like, hey, April Keatley would do great at this. I'd like to have her do this for us. And I thought that was really nice. And that she thought of me. And so the company rolled out. I got a mental health certificate. I'm not a licensed counselor, right? But I know how to listen, and I know some of the things to watch for, and people that could potentially be going down a similar path that I did, right? Not setting boundaries, not logging off, working, over the weekend, sending emails, right? And, at 11 o'clock at night or 2 a.m, right? Not good habits. Not good habits. Are you pointing to him?
I hope I'm pointing to James. Am I supposed to be pointing this way? Am I backwards?
yeah, well, you're right on mine. Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah.
Guilty.
I got a couple comments, April. I don't want to cut in though. Please.
No, go ahead.
Well, it just brings up the idea, and we talked about this. Safety. You mentioned safety. That's at the core of everything we do in the energy industry. We yell it from the mountaintops. But one of the things that I very rarely hear is psychological safety or mental safety or those. And another thing that you had brought up in your when you were talking was, and James says this all the time, don't suffer in silence.
Yes.
And that's a very hard thing to do because so many of us internalize things and keep it inside instead of letting it out. And I'm blessed to have James as my best friend, that I can say pretty much anything. No, I do say anything to him, and he doesn't judge me. He gives me guidance. He gives me, well, sometimes he judges me, but that's a whole other story.
Just on the inside.
But you need that, but it takes, and it takes a leap of being brave to do that. Correct? I mean,
April, I was nodding my head for another reason, actually. And I'm guilty of all those things, just like many of us are. I mean, I'm sure several people were listening, nodding their head, going, I've sent that 2:00 email. I came to that same kind of realization here lately, and I went back to my teams and told both of them, listen, I don't know that I've ever said this before, but if I send an email at 11 o'clock at night or at 2 a.m, like, it's because I don't want to lose that thought. I never ever expect a response, and I don't expect anyone working past what their hours are. And everybody was like, yeah, I mean, thanks for saying that, but I get you, but I don't know that I'd ever said it, and I'd gotten those instant responses at 7 o'clock, at night, and I was going, man, but I've never told people that's not the expectation,
Yeah.
but sorry, we'll listen. I'm having a good time listening.
And I think as leaders, right, we have that accountability, right, to make it clear. And I will say that that's a fault that I made early in my career. Like I was working all the time. I didn't set those boundaries for myself. And early on, I didn't really set that expectation. Now I have remedied that and said, if you do ever get an email, although on the flip side, I really try to walk the walk and model that. And what past that normal, reasonable workday, unless there is a deadline or a safety sensitive type issue or somebody could get hurt, right? It can wait till the next day. There will always be more work to do. Always.
Yep. And I think setting up guidelines too, James, I don't mean to interrupt, but sometimes I think you and I do this, that email is okay. It's an email. We have it in there. We'll get to it. A text message, sometimes, at least in our world, is a little bit quicker. Hey, do you know about this? And if this actually rings, which prior to COVID, we used to live on this thing, but if this thing rings, something's going on. It could either be personal, professional, both, whatever the case may be. But to have those also to be built up.
Yes. Yeah. No, because and that's similar. Like I will tell my team, hey, I'm off, but if you need me, right?
Yep.
Call me or send a text. That's fine. I don't have a problem with it, but I'm not going to be actively monitoring email, right? And so those are some boundaries that I've really worked hard to put back in place. And I would encourage other leaders to not only to do it and then model it, model that behavior for their employees, because it does send the wrong message, right? I think, or it has the potential to send a wrong message. Now, I understand exceptions happen. There could be important things, but again, those are exceptions. And so maybe just kind of pivoting back to being the mental health champion. So they asked me to do that. And I'm just one of a number of people, but again, that's a natural topic for me because I've always been very interested in health, wellness, and being your best self, living your best life, all those things, right? And I would say being a positive person. Most people would say that about me, but I have to consciously work at it because I have the ability to catastrophize things, right? The sky is falling.
It's like a superpower.
Yeah. So I took the opportunity. We just rolled out this new platform using Teams. We hadn't been using it very long. And I was like, there's these big channels. Maybe I could share some safety messages about psychological safety, mental health safety, right? Stress management, getting types of rest, right? And so that's exactly what I started doing. I started just posting, I would try to do like maybe 1 or 2 a month, maybe 1 a week. And it was always on Wednesday. I called it Wellness Wednesday, which is certainly not an original ideal.
Can we use that? Can we use that idea?
You absolutely can.
Okay.
Yes. Like
copyrighted.
Yes.
You have to pay our royalties.
But I started just posting on Teams messages, and some of them would just be kind of written. Some of them I would make like an actual like PowerPoint slide with a safety moment, to go with it. And then I also had reached out to some of my other mental health champions, and we did kind of a mental health lunch and learn, and we just shared our stories. And the company also asked me, well, they asked for volunteers, not me specifically, to share your struggle with mental health. So I shared about, that extreme period of stress that I went under and how that affected me. So, yeah, I mean, and it was so funny. Like I was just doing it because it's something I'm personally passionate about, right? Didn't think, oh, I'm going to get an award for this or anything like that. Never occurred to me. And one of my colleagues, I don't even really know him very well. He's in the reliability team. He reached out to me and said, hey, I'd like to nominate you for this. And I was like, you've just made my year. Right.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Wow.
But it goes to the idea of touching one person in a positive way, and that person acknowledging that and saying that to you just gives you that reaffirmation that what we're doing does make a difference. And I know James and I thrive on that all the time.
Yeah, I mean, it's the nature of an awareness program, right? It's you don't know who you're going to catch at what time. So changing the message, changing the speaker, changing the audio, trying to, you don't know what that one thing is, for that person. And that thing may change from day to day, from moment to moment. So if somebody's, in that bad spot, and your testimony can catch them then to go get help or to reach out to you and at least start that conversation. It's so important. And that's the roots of what we're doing today. April, when we heard your message at SGA, I was like, man, and we didn't cross paths completely. We did it some weird way, but you had to take off and we switched cards with somebody. I just came home with a picture of a text message off someone else's phone, but we worked it out.
It's wonderful.
April, wonderful. You mentioned something in the pre-show and I just wanted to kind of lean into it. And it caught my ear at first because you used the SMART acronym, but we were talking a little bit about, how do you sustain this culture and keeping this in the forefront and, bringing more people into the fold, to help out with this. And you mentioned setting SMART goals. Can you talk a little bit about that and what y'all have done over there at TC?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is, and I will say I wasn't very good at goal setting early on, was not. And I think it has to be very transparent, right? With the company's going to have its goals. They want to hit, profit margins, things like that, to be accountable to our shareholders, right? And that's every company. But I think there is a change in the culture. And we are seeing it in like capital venture companies, that sort of thing, like where they want to see that a company has a sustainability program, right? That cares for the environment, that cares for the next generation, that cares for our people. And I think our people, regardless of whether it's TC Energy, whether it's some other company down the street, right? Our people are our greatest assets.
Amen.
Sure.
And you got to take care of your people, right? Yes. And just because somebody's going through a mental health issue or a physical health issue, right? Or a personal situation, right? That doesn't mean you abandon them. That doesn't mean they're suddenly not meeting expectations.
They're broken, right?
Yeah. And you know what I mean? Or they exit the organization, right? We are whole people. And so I think that we bring our whole selves to our work, and we need to increase this idea of creating transparency in not being afraid to say, hey, I'm struggling this week. I'm really feeling fatigued. Like I've just got, maybe there's something going on at home. Like it's okay. Right.
Yes. Right.
And that happens at the top of the organization. It's going to happen at the bottom of the organization, and everywhere in between. And so to kind of tie into the SMART goals, like, I think that we as leaders and employees also have accountability in this too, to have that dialogue with their leaders on, is this goal achievable, and is it specific? Are we clear on what it means for success? What does success look like? How am I going to be measured, right? And having that really specific, candid dialogue so that you're not surprised, right, at the end of the year, right, and having that constant communication on, well, things shift, we're running a little bit behind, right, and just, I think that is just key critical to being success, and also enabling our teams and our employees to be successful, right, and have that satisfaction of job well done, right? And I didn't work 80 hours a week to get it done. I didn't work 60 hours a week to get it done. We set something that was reasonable for both of us, me the company, me the employee, and that's going to sustain me from a long-term purpose as a resource, because people are our resources, right? And enable us to retain that talent and that person not burn out.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because that's what you don't want to happen. And you don't want people to leave because they feel burnout.
Right.
Yeah. I haven't been in the workforce very long. I'm just kidding. But I bet Jimmy can tell some stories from back in the day of when, I always kind of make the joke. It's not funny, but it is. That we almost had a baggage claim at the door, right? You always had to leave your stuff at the door. I don't want that.
Yep.
Don't bring your home stuff.
That
in.
was the edict.
That's me impersonating myself. I'm sure I've said that before, 10, 15 years ago. But we're learning, that when we hired you, we hired your brother-in-law and your,
Yeah.
your dog and everything.
Both
in
your
between,
dogs too.
your habits, your vices, all of it, right? And that's with every one of us, and it's exponential. And then there's life, and then there's pandemics and everything that we got to work through. And I think all of us are getting a crash course in what that looks like and how to do it and how to do it better, hopefully every day. Because April, you said it in the pre-show, people are people. They we can't expect workers to come in and put it in and leave it all at the door anymore. If you're going to be in your own home working and
How do you
my
leave that
daughter
at the
runs
door
in,
when
my
you're
daughter
remote
runs in
working?
here. Yeah, I
That
know.
it doesn't make
The
sense.
lines are so blurrier than they've ever been before. And so we've got to be, proactive in clearing that up for folks
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, this is actually, so you guys are my talk therapy session for the week. So this is actually therapy. So
Double dipping.
Well,
double
let me
dipping.
share. Yeah, and let me share something. We talked about it in the pre-show, and you just brought it up here about walking the talk and being transparent and all those things with leadership. And as I share with you, I'm celebrating today is day 3,806, sixth day of sobriety for me. And I'll say that number out. Thank you. I appreciate it. And sometimes, like, what was high five, virtual high fives. And I shared in the, 10 years ago, it was something you didn't talk about. I mean, it took me 6 months, 9 months to even say that I was now sober, because
There's a stigma, right? I mean,
well, it was like, he's weak, he can't drink, he can't control it. I couldn't, I mean, even though I wasn't functioning alcoholic, I was an accelerating alcoholic. I did my thing well. And as long as I did my thing well, he's got to be good. But it wasn't good for me. So I'm celebrating 10 years, and I share that story, and I want to share it here again, because if I can positively affect one person to say to themselves, they could have an issue. If they have one drink a day, it might be too much for them. Other people, it might be 10 drinks a day. It doesn't matter. Anybody has an issue that they feel is a concern, that's their choice to have that choice to say, no, one glass of wine is too much for me. And we have to understand that. And they have to understand that it's okay to say that, especially during this pandemic time. I'm a leader at a recovery church, and it used to be 1 in 10 people suffered from some sort of substance concern, not necessarily a full addict, but a concern. And we're at the weekly meetings, and we're like, we wonder what that number is now. Is it 1 in 8, 1 in 7? And think about it, folks. Next time you go to a meeting and there's 10 people on there, know that one person could be struggling with something, and you may not even know it until they're in the environment where they feel comfortable enough to do that. So your words, April, before absolutely resonated with me. So I just wanted to say thank you for that.
Yeah,
thank you for letting me share that.
Yeah. So growing up, my dad he suffered from addiction. And, growing up, you didn't think about it, but I actually did some research and shared a mental health moment on this about that addiction is actually a complex mental health condition, right? And it's okay to say you need help with something, right? And just like you said, sharing your story there, hopefully that touches someone today and gives them courage to speak up, and things like that. I actually had a leader. I don't want to share too much private information, but I had a leader reach out to me and just dropped me a note and said, "Hey, I have had a child. I did a safety moment on suicide and suicide prevention."
Boy.
And they reached out and said, "Hey, I had, one of my children had an issue a few years ago. I really appreciate you highlighting this topic. It's, something that, fortunately for him, his child is doing well." And, so you just never know. Right. And so I think sometimes people, it can, I mean, they think, oh, well, she talks about mental health a lot, right? And it's always out of a place of care or concern for others, want others to be, their best selves, right? So
Yeah, it's about breaking down the stereotypes, and understanding that it doesn't define someone, whatever it is, right? That it's we're not putting them in a jar and saying, okay, then we got you now. It and that's a tough thing in this industry. We've come so far, really, in the last 5 years, and I've been here about 5 or 6 years, and I've seen it myself. Going to conferences this past year, and we didn't have a lot, but mental health was on every single one that I went to in some capacity, and that right there says a lot.
It
I'm
does.
really proud of our industry for stepping up and having what used to be tough conversations and normalizing a little bit of this so that we could at least take it. I mean, we'll take it from here. If you'll let us just talk about it, I think we'll carry the torch for sure. And April, you're one of those torch carriers. We appreciate you for that.
yeah.
Absolutely.
So, Jimmy, you want to? Oh, go ahead, April. I don't want to cut you
Oh
off.
no, I was just gonna expand a little bit on what you said there. That
Please.
it is super important, like for our frontline technicians, right? And different generations too. Excuse me, because it is different, right? I think I'd shared, I can't remember if I shared it earlier when we were just talking the pre-show, but like, my mom was from the generation, like the boomer generation, and was very much soldier on, right?
Oh yeah, definitely.
And I think that we need to really work, and I think that is something that some of the other mental health champions have gave feedback to health services, is really pressing the message out to field operations, right? And our frontline technicians. And because the last thing that we want is somebody coming up, that's going to be working, doing energy isolation, that is not fit for work that day, really, needs to take a personal day or go home, or, needs to, whatever the case, whatever kind of help they need to have in that moment. Because the last thing we want is somebody not being able to be present in the physical work that they're doing and getting hurt or causing someone else to get hurt.
Kind
right?
of a safety chain is in my mind, and I've referenced
Absolutely.
it before, that it's all the pieces that go together to give the whole safety chain, and mental and psychological safety is absolutely a key ring in that
You
chain.
sound like Steve Allen talking about PSMS right now.
Who, me?
Yeah, he's so proud. His heart grew 2 times that day.
April, I have to tell you, we could talk for hours, and I'll speak for James and I that we would love.
I think she's trying to hit a number for therapy hours. I think so. We may need to talk for hours.
We could. Hey, as far as I'm concerned, it's an open invitation to have you back on. I mean, we want to do that without that. But before we let you go today, what James and I like to do is give you the stage.
This is my favorite part too.
It's both of our favorite part.
No pressure.
Yeah, no pressure. But
Don't
it's
stress.
Thought leadership. Give it all away. It can be a word, it could be a phrase, it could be a thought, anything that you want to tell the audience. The platform is yours. I will. And please, anything you want to share.
Yeah. I would say care about your people, right? Be interested in them. Be interested in who they are. Everybody's different. Everybody's unique. And just care about your people. Talk to them, right? And I do think create that safe space for people to speak up, right? Just because I'm a leader, right, doesn't mean that I know everything. I certainly do not. And so I think it's okay to humble yourself, be vulnerable. I think it's also okay to say, you know what, I'm tired this week. And I actually said that to a couple of my employees earlier this week. I was like, man, I was really tired on Monday. I didn't want to get up. The weather was cold. It was warm in my house. I think it's okay to be human.
Yes.
And I think that people, I think, and this is I think the younger generation, the future generation of workers is demanding that we be real, with who we are as people, And what do because we all have innate talents and gifts that we bring. We all have different perspectives, right? Inclusion and diversity. But I think if we can really demonstrate, as as a company, as leaders, as employers, as a friend, as a wife, as a mother, right, that we care about each other, people will strive to do their best, right? And so that's something that I'm passionate about is enabling people to be successful, to be the best version of themselves. Don't be afraid to ask for help. And on the flip side, if you're a leader and your employee is coming to you and they've made a mistake or they've faltered in some way, don't react. Don't beat them down, right? Like talk about it in a constructive, positive way about, well, what can we do differently? What can we learn? How are we going to prevent this happening again? And I certainly have been the on the receiving end of the less positive version of that conversation. And I can speak from firsthand that just shuts me down emotionally.
Sure.
As if it's more like conversational and like, okay, I understand we had a miss here, but how can we do something about it and make it a positive? What can we learn from it, right? Versus that kind of negative, mean spirit, kind of like, I just think that's just an old style of leadership. And I think we got to leave that in the past and focus on how we can collaborate and solve things in a positive way that rise and just make that, because the last thing you want to do is for your employees or your team members not to come to you if there's a problem or a safety sensitive industry issue that they're concerned about, right? Especially being in our industry. So
I love it.
I just kind of had a moment, Jimmy. I was just sitting here thinking, what is our show? Like, where have we come? I'm in a really good way.
Yeah,
If you would have told me
agreed.
this, what we were talking about, I don't know, 90 episodes into it when we started, I would have been pumped, but
We would have
I
been
thought we were
scared.
just going to be talking about pipes
And energy,
and,
energy,
right. And the
But we're
fact
talking
that
about the most important thing,
I
James, is the
know
people. And
and
April brought it up. Be real.
how meta is it that we're sharing this message, April? I mean,
talking about energy, right? We're talking about the
we
energy.
are.
Yeah.
We are. It's so awesome.
Yeah.
What a great message.
Yeah. Fantastic.
I love it. And how simple, right? I mean, our kids would laugh at us if they just heard it like we're getting paid to tell people, now be nice.
Be real.
Be real.
Be real.
But it's true. I mean,
be human.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
Wow.
April, I don't want to cut this. I want to keep talking, but with the band, we'll probably go up to like 10. What are those things called? Terabytes or whatever those things are.
I'll tell you what, I'll open an invitation for the next one. Let's have another one and let's bring Ashley back on and we'll all four be on and it'll be like a 3-hour episode. How about that?
Yep, Ashley Knight with Southern Star, absolutely a good friend of ours. And I will do this. I will make every attempt that I can in 2022 to have April, James, and Ashley on a panel somewhere speaking on this very topic, because I would love to sit there and to hear that. I really would. I learned so much today, and I have to say that we, no matter what our age or what our tenure is in the industry, as long as we're learning something every day, we're doing good. And if we could take that and pass it on to somebody else, then we are achieving some of our purpose.
I want to leave the audience with one more thing too, that you're setting a tone one way or the other within your company, right? I mean, if you're talking about mental health or you're not, I mean, it's happening, right? I mean, so you can be a part of the conversation or not. And it says quite a bit either way.
Yep.
Agree 100%.
April, thank you for joining us today. It's been our absolute pleasure, the highlight of the morning. For the audience members, please, if you're on the LinkedIn Pro LinkedIn platform, please connect with April. I didn't do a solid day. Part of the biggest thing that I enjoyed about you in some of our correspondence beforehand was some of your personal life experiences. and, dog champion lover, travel the world, has goals on bucket list to travel to other places, and all those things. I was saying, the work stuff, I get all that, but I was really interested in the personal
That's
parts.
why we got to have her back, right?
We're going to. It's a done deal. So, anyways, audience, please connect with April. Please follow TC Energy. Learn all about this. Ask us questions. If anybody has any question, direct message us. If you're on one of the other podcast platforms, you know how to get a hold of us. April, again, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been our absolute pleasure. Until next week on Coffee with Jim and James, I'm going to switch it up a little bit today because I always say stay safe, but let's stay mentally safe this week. How's that? See you next week on Coffee with Jim and James. Thank you. Thanks,
Thank you, April.
Great job. That was fantastic.